Jazzcast Pros.
We've had tons of same-sex families who have walked through our doors, and I recall them saying stuff like, oh, well, I reached out to this agency or reached out to that agency and I haven't heard back, or either this agency turned me down or turned me away. And I believe it's because, we're a same-sex couple. That is unfortunate. It really is, because we have so many children who are waiting right now, who are waiting for their forever family, who are waiting for a safe home, whether it's temporary or permanent. We have hundreds and thousands of children in the foster care system waiting, and you still have agencies in 2026 who are discriminating and turning people away. It's devastating to say or imply that no home is better than a same-sex home. That is not fair. That's not fair to our youth. Every child deserves a loving home.
Welcome to License to Love. I'm Lauri McKnight, Executive Director of Families Thrive.
And I'm Veronica Black.
Together, our mission is to demystify the process of gaining your license to foster or adopt in New York State.
And to empower you with the tools, insight, and confidence to open your heart and home.
And with us today is a special guest, Rachel Doig. She is a new employee with Families Thrive. She is filling our marketing specialist role, and we're so excited to have her. And she's going to add to our conversation today. So in light of June being Pride Month, we are jumping into some really great conversation with Veronica and Rachel. So welcome, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so great to be here. I am very thrilled to be starting a new position with this organization here. I had heard about you guys a little bit before I had even come across the opportunity, and I know you do a lot of great work here in the community. So it's great to just feel like some of the experience that I have had in my background in marketing and communications can actually take that and apply it to an organization that does a lot for the community and the kids in this area and just families overall.
So, Lauri, as you said, it is Pride Month, and we're excited because, as you know, Rachel, one of the things we pride ourselves on is catering to everyone. We are very inclusive. We embrace everyone. All families from all walks of life are welcome here. This is our safe place, right? So we not only open our doors to the LGBTQ community, but we also have tons of children in care who consider themselves as part of that community, and we support them. We support them, our families support them. Again, it's our safe place. So with you joining us, and you said you learned a little bit about us previously before joining our organization. Were you aware of that piece?
So I was not aware of that piece, but it's not because your organization does not talk about it. It was just because I did not know that you were such an inclusive organization. I knew that you advocated for children of every background, every story, anywhere they come from, any kind of experiences they've had. And obviously that is different for every child that comes through the doors, or even just is having a conversation about. But just knowing that you take into account all of those different things with each child that comes through the door is really meaningful. And it's really nice to know, I think, too, for people that might be wanting to, whether it's volunteer with the organization or get involved, work here somehow, maybe even help out and become a foster parent or adoptive parent. I think it's very beneficial for everybody to know how inclusive Families Thrive is, just because of that factor, no matter what way they might want to get involved. It's very helpful to know that you are so inclusive as an organization.
And in your role, that is something that you would do, right? As a marketing person, you would make it known to the community that we are here and this is what we do and we're here for you. So we are excited about that one thing, because we know that's your area. You're a marketing person and this is your specialty. So we are looking forward to you helping us get the word out in the community and grow our program. Now, okay, so based on your experience with the LGBT community, why is it important for our families to understand the needs of our youth who are part of that community, who are part of the LGBT community?
Yeah, absolutely. So our youth need support no matter what they're facing in life, regardless of what aspect of their life that's in. And gender and sexuality are a big part of that. A lot of people don't realize how much kids know about themselves when they are quite young. And I think there are a lot of discussions being had right now, especially in the political level, right? When it comes to sexual orientation and gender and laws and all of those sort of things. But when you really break it down and you talk to kids about things that are on a kid specific level, if we're, all of us are adults, grown adults, we've been adults for a little bit of time now. And we all kind of can look within ourselves and see, even back to our childhood days, okay, well, I could see that part of myself when I was 5 years old. I could see that part of myself when I was 10, And there's different varying levels of what kids understand about sexuality and gender at their age. They don't understand the actual sexuality part. They just see themselves as a certain type of person, right? And you don't necessarily need to explain things and give them a ton of resources when they're a child and they're that age. And you don't need to know everything either as a parent. There are plenty of parents in the world that never thought that they would have an LGBTQ child. But as long as you support them and you try to get out there and even try to find some local resources, different groups are offered a lot of times. I know our Rochester community has some really great resources for parents of queer children, or even just wanting to be allies to their children and just to let them know that they support them no matter what. Hey, if you ever think that you might not be heterosexual, and some of those conversations are things that you have when kids are a little bit older, more like teenage years and that sort of thing. But a lot of kids will also come to their parents and say, hey, I feel this way. And they might not feel that way forever, but as long as you react as a parent with love and support, they will not bring any trauma from that experience, right? A lot of times kids are rejected by their parents when they come out, whether they are in foster care, whether they are adopted, whether they are neither of those things. And so a lot of times it's just important for everyone, and also our foster families, of course, and adoptive parents, to just be there for their children and to say, I might not understand what you're going through, but I love you and I'm here for you through it. If there's anything that you need, what would be helpful to you? And they might not know what that is either, especially depending on their age. But I think just the love and support that can come from parents or parental figures is so important for so many kids. There's plenty of people that I have met as an adult who did not have that support, and they knew who they were from a very young age. And now, unfortunately, they're alienated from those people, whether they're family members or friends or whomever they may have met. And it's unfortunate because it doesn't need to be that way. A lot of times there's still love and affection there between the people. They just might not understand their child the way that they want to. So just becoming a little more educated if possible, looking into different stories of different people and different families can really open your eyes up to other people's experiences for sure. And at least for myself, I'm in my early 30s. I am married to a woman. We've been together for 8 years or so, but I have been out to my family since my early 20s. And I was very lucky that they were accepting and loving. I grew up in a very small area in Pennsylvania. My family is like a farming family, very kind of rural area. But I have two parents that love me no matter what. They've both been through their own experiences in life. They've met different types of people. And it wasn't even a blink of an eye, really, when I came out to them. And I am very grateful for that because I know a lot of people don't have that experience, especially kids. Because sometimes they don't know what they're trying to say either, right? They're trying to say, I feel this way, but they might not have the vocabulary for it. Not to say that they don't understand, but it's just hard to explain your identity, right? When you're a child.
And that is very true. I'm going to share that not only am I an ally, but I'm also a parent. My son, I adopted my son, and I knew at a young age that he was different. He was different, and I saw it, but I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to wait for him to. And I remember having that conversation with him about him being different. He brought it to me, and we were in the car driving, just the two of us. And he felt safe enough at that time to say, Mom, I feel different. I am different. And I don't know if you noticed that. And I said, I have noticed. I know. And it was really hard for him because the young ladies at school liked him, and he just wanted to be friends, and didn't know how to tell them, to explain that he wasn't actually interested like that. He wanted to hang out with them. He wanted to, just have fun and be accepted. But that was a really difficult time for him. High school was extremely difficult because the kids there, kids can be mean, and they would call him names and all types of stuff. And but he was okay. He's thriving now and doing exceptionally well. He's living his truth. And I explained to him, and until he's able to live his truth, he's not going to be happy. So instead of, hiding and trying to, please other people, please yourself first. Be who you are. And he's now, he's out, and he is, like I said, doing well. We've attended the, pride parades, and I've done all these things with him, and the whole family, they're all aware, and they've all told him how much they love him, and that it's not a question. There was never a question, and he did not have to come out to anyone. And, so it's hard for our youth in foster care, and it's very, very important that families know that there's nothing wrong with them. It's okay to be different. That's not a big deal. It's who they are. And like I said, I had noticed when he was really, really young that he was different from my other boys. And look at him today. He's doing so well, and he's so happy. And as long as we continue to be inclusive as an agency, opening our doors to both, not just, families, but accepting more youth who identify as, gay or queer or, or lesbian or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. One of the things I think we've learned, and thank you both for talking about your stories. It's so helpful when we're educating the community, and especially our foster our foster parent community. One of the things that we know is that kids in foster care are struggling so much more when they are in the LGBTQ community. We're seeing unfortunate situations. We're seeing more depression. I did a study on this not too long ago, and I wish I had the stats in front of me, but we're seeing more depression. We're seeing more suicidal ideations. We're seeing challenges when they're in foster care, especially if one child is, let's just say, for example, a trans child, and they're in a home with other kids who are not and don't understand or don't agree. We absolutely know that children bully one another as it is all through school years. So when they're in a home that maybe doesn't support that, or the other kids don't support it, it is like re-traumatizing kids, or not even traumatizing them in a whole new way. And with all of the statistics about the challenges they face in foster care, and whilst we have some great foster parents, they can't see and do everything for that child. The family, the biological family, the kids in the home, the kids in the school, all of that creates so much difficulty for our kids in the LGBTQ community. And so I think one of the things we need to look at is how do we work on that? How do we try to create a more supportive, solid structure around kids? Because the fact that depression is higher for them, and cutting and self-harm and then suicidal ideations is appalling. And it comes back down to acceptance and support.
Lauri, I think more of that support can come from our families. It's almost like kids come into care with that negative stigma, right? They already have a low self-esteem. Yes. They feel unwanted. They don't feel loved and all that because they bounced around from foster home to foster home, or either my parents didn't want me. They feel all of that, right? So I know one of the things I did when I adopted my boys, I was a foster parent first, but what I did was I ensured that they knew that they were loved. Right. So that was my focus. It's like building them up, lifting them up, and it's like, yes, mom and dad, were unable to care for you, but they loved you, they really did. They just couldn't do it. And I know all situations are different. There's no two situations that are the same. But if our families were aware that there's a kid in their home who identifies as gay or lesbian or whatever, I feel like if they make their home more inclusive, right? So it's like, that's not a bad thing. We're going to celebrate you. We're going to accept you. And it has to be spoken, though. So in my home, there's a lot of jokes that are being thrown right now. The boys, especially when they're all home, it is crazy. And my son knows that he's accepted. Everyone, loves him, but also making sure that they're receiving the extra support outside of the home. But I really think it starts at home first. If it don't, then it's like, where can I be safe at? Who's going to protect me? Who's going to lift me up? And I just feel like our foster parents, our foster parents are great. I'm not talking about ours, but foster parents in general, if they take that time to show that they're accepting of it. And this home, not just me, but the home as a whole is accepting.
And then it will kind of trickle down too, right? That's kind of how it works with kids. They're very visual learners. They see their parents do things and then they kind of take that on, right? I mean, that's even coming back to what you were saying about school and how kids are treated at school, not even including the fact that they might be LGBTQ. So if that is just something that mom, dad, whomever says that's just part of who they are, then the other kids won't even bat an eye, right? And if anything, they'll become their biggest protector.
Yes.
I think one of the things that as an agency we work hard on is training our families through acceptance of all walks, because today we're talking about this particular topic, but there's so many other challenges that kids face. We have all kinds of biases, and so you never know what's going to happen in a home. And so educating the foster families, you're talking about starting at home. Well, when they're placed with us, we want to ensure that our foster families are prepared for that child. So not just their diagnoses or their background or their behaviors, but for who they are, whatever their identity is, wherever they come from, whatever, space and walk in life. And so training them and educating them on going beyond just learning the therapeutic techniques that we train our foster parents. And so it does come down to support and acceptance, as we've been saying. But I think part of that reason we don't have as many issues with that is because we really try to educate our foster parents throughout this process of being able to accept any and every child. And I think that's crucial. And I think we kind of started off saying that same thing, that we're such an accepting agency that when you come into this space to work, and we call it a safe space, but we want to make sure you feel it's a safe space and that our homes are safe spaces. So we work hard to not just project that out, to really do it, to make sure it's really happening.
Doing the work behind the scenes is not something that, a lot of organizations and companies, whether they're an agency, a nonprofit or not, pride is another thing that is a big topic right now. So a lot of companies will talk about it, but you don't know if they're doing the work behind the scenes or, the training of their staff or anything that might be included there to kind of accept everybody. So it's great to know when companies do that behind the scenes, and a lot of times if you are taking the time to do that, you're not usually sitting around bragging about it, right? Because you're taking the time to educate people and tell them what they need to know.
Right. Over the years, I've been here, 27 years, and we've had tons of families, same-sex families, who have walked through our doors, and either they have adopted through us. And then we've also had tons who were interested in fostering. Those families, I recall speaking to many of them and them saying stuff like, oh, well, I reached out to this agency or reached out to that agency and I haven't heard back. Or either this agency turned me down or turned me away. And I believe it's because, we're a same-sex couple. That is unfortunate. It really is, because we have so many children who are waiting right now, who are waiting for their forever family, who are waiting for a safe home, whether it's temporary or permanent. We have hundreds and thousands of children in the foster care system waiting, and you still have agencies in 2026 who are discriminating and turning people away. So we cannot say that no home is better than a same-sex home. That is not fair. That's not fair to our youth. Every child deserves a loving home, a safe home, whether it's a same-sex couple or a single parent. Here in the United States, like I said, it's 2026. And what do we have? We have 14 states right now who are hiding behind religious, beliefs and turning away, families who are interested in loving and fostering and adopting someone else's child, So they're basically saying that they'd rather these kids age out of the system instead of having a forever family or a safe home until they return to their birth family. And that's just unfair. That really is unfair.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like you said, it's 2026 and it's technically not illegal for homosexual couples to adopt, but there are a lot of things in place that make it harder for them to adopt. I don't remember exactly the stats, but I know, when gay marriage was legalized, that helped pave the way in a lot of ways. That was a big court decision. But again, that was only about 10 years ago. And even still, I want to say about 25 states, probably about half of them, don't have discrimination protections for same-sex couples. So even if it's legal, they can still discriminate against you and tell you no. Or a lot of states will also say, well, you can only adopt if you are single. So then some couples will get divorced so that they can adopt a child and raise the kid, But I mean, for somebody to say, well, let's get a divorce so we can take this kid in. I mean, does that say how much they want to help? It blows my mind that we are still in that place too, Veronica.
Yeah, it's devastating. It really is. It's devastating to say or imply that no home is better than a same-sex home, And it's almost like I've heard things like, it's almost like they're going to teach the kid to be gay or teach the child, it's gonna rub off. It just baffles me, the things that people say and the things that people do. And so we have youth who are suffering right now. we have youth who are waiting, and that's one of the reasons why we are so welcoming, and we believe that every child deserves a home regardless of their sexual orientation, or we don't care. That's not the important part. The important part is making sure that these youth have the skills and the support to be productive citizens, right? Have the support, the foundation that a family offers. They need that, not concerned about them being a same-sex couple. Who cares?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
They can all come to us. We'll take them in, and we'll get them. We'll find some kids for them, and build and grow their families. And
we've had some successful adoptions and foster placements with same-sex couples. And I was glad you mentioned that, because Rachel and I discussed that recently, that there's such misconceptions. There's these myths out there that same-sex couple is just automatically trying to, change the child's direction and thought process, and that it's almost like brainwashing them to and it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And the interesting thing is that we have same-sex couples. So two dads adopted two little girls, so, and of course you can only imagine what other kinds of things people will say, but unfortunately, and it is sad that there's such judgment upon it, because we see our same-sex couples being some amazing foster parents. They're fighting their own battles. So, and they're trying to raise children. They just want to be kind of that somewhat of a typical family. We're married, we have kids, right? And so we've had many successes. And I want to mention one example. This was a very interesting experience we had, where one of our foster parents, who's got a very strong faith-based background, took in a child who couldn't decide from day to day if it was he, she, or they. That was just that it depended on their day and what they felt like, and they were a handful, So, and they were a teenage child, and they had so much trauma, and experiences were so challenging. And so initially we thought, when we learned all of this and it all kind of came together, we weren't sure this was going to be a good fit and it would work. And you know what? It worked great. So even sometimes where we're fighting those faith-based organizations who don't agree with or believe in it, some of our foster parents are saying, hey, I might not be for me, but I'm still going to care about that child. I'm going to work on raising that child. I'm going to help that child. I will support them while they figure out who they are from day to day. And I will tell you, it's successful when they aged out of care, didn't want to be adopted, and that was okay, aged out and came back to see her. So it was amazing. When they felt like going to church with her, they went to church. When they felt like being who they were, she was all supportive of it. And it was just beautiful to see, because you weren't sure what to expect from either one of them.
Right.
It was a great experience, but we have seen successful placements and adoptions and family situations with our same-sex couples. And I think what you said about when people think no home is better than a same-sex home is just an ignorant and sad thought process. So we're grateful for those families that support, whether they're in those same-sex relationships or not.
Yes. And also with us being allies and promoting, right, same-sex adoptions, and that we welcome them to foster. I've heard from families who say, oh, well, we saw it on your website, and we love that, that you guys are showing that representation on your website. So again, we welcome all. We're very inclusive. We are allies of the LGBTQ and questioning community. Okay, we love them. I love them because they love my son and they're good to my son, and my son is happy and I am accepting of him, and so we welcome those families.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we talked about was how, what you said, Rachel, about it's only been about 10 years since marriage was legalized. And I think about all of the challenges that our kids or any individual who present themselves as part of this community, the struggles that they've gone through, and then to have legislation constantly turning around, and then seeing the. You can imagine we're seeing all kinds of things come up against anyone who's different at this particular time, this era, which is highly sad for all of us. But the challenges that are faced anyway, and then to have legislation or organizations or states that are not supportive. To me, it just is like that slap in the face, like, here, we're going to give you this much, and we're going to keep taking things away, right? And I think it's in multiple areas in this era, which is just very concerning. So what I wonder is out there for our kids, are there support groups? Are there alliances? What do we know about our community that can really support those kids or those adults even? What do we have in this community to support outside of what we do here?
We have a lot of resources in the Rochester community. I can't speak from a parental perspective since I don't have a child myself, but just being a part of the LGBTQ community, like I said, I've been up here for about 8 years or so. And as soon as I moved up here, it was very welcoming. I mean, there's plenty of businesses, restaurants, bars, all sorts of different places in the area with pride flags hanging up, nice welcoming signs inside of their establishments, that sort of thing. But besides that, I think a lot of the people that live here also really care about the community members. I can't name any off the top of my head right now, but I know I'm subscribed to a couple different mailing lists of places in the area, just different things that I found at like festivals around here. We have the Pride Festival coming up next month. But even there is a good place to find lots of different groups, organizations, community events. And I know a couple of the main organizations here in Rochester put together monthly calendars. So different things that you can go to if you're part of the group. Sometimes they're kid friendly. Sometimes they're at a bar. Sometimes they're, at a nature trail, some kind of walk in the woods or something like that. So there's all sorts of things that are going on all the time. It's hard to even keep up with all of the different things. But if there are people, whether you're a foster parent, adoptive parent, just part of the community, if you just do a quick little Google search or anything and look up Rochester Pride events, there's always things going on throughout the whole year. It's not just during this kind of Pride season. June is Pride Month, but Rochester celebrates a lot in July, just because of the history of the city and also trying to not compete with other big cities here in New York State for their Pride celebration. So we get 2 months of a celebration here. But also it's just nice to know that there's a lot of people in the area for that. But again, like I said, there's always things going on. I mean, there's places that I go to for one purpose and it ends up being, okay, well, I'm going to come back here because they have so many cool events or they have a lot of good recommendations. I've been getting back into going to the library lately. There are always things going on there, always posted up all over the sides of the bulletin boards and such. But yeah, the Rochester area just has a lot of really good resources that I don't know that people even realize. And there's a lot of people that are here to support you no matter what journey you're going through.
That's awesome. That's really great. I would imagine there's even some kind of a support group for maybe even parents and kids.
Well, yes, there is. I know for my son, I connected him to the group MOCA.
Yeah.
And it's more health and wellness, and I think that is good for people who had negative experiences and people who need therapy. There's Trillium Health, the mental health and all that and support. I know Mocha is really good for young people, and they have the youth groups. Like I said, the therapy, they have all that stuff there. So, and I know they also focus on people of color.
Yeah,
So
that could be another full conversation, right?
Yes.
Just having those layers of things.
Yes. I was just going to say the same thing. We really didn't touch on that.
No.
But that is something we have learned a lot about. That and sometimes you said layers, Rachel. There are layers. It could be a child of color who is struggling or questioning or whatever with their identity, and they could even have a learning disability or a physical ailment, and so there are just layers and layers, and that's when we were talking about the challenges and the way that the treatment, it's just again, I think we really need to always be focusing on the kids' mental health and well-being, because that's a lot to carry. And then combine it with trauma, being in foster care. That's a lot to carry. And some of our kids just can't do it. They can't carry it. And that's when we see those terrible things that, come into play, self-harm or suicidal ideation. That's just a lot for a kid.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a lot for an adult, right? And
yes,
then,
absolutely.
And taking that into the kid's perspective, it's just, it's so much. Well, before I forget, there is one resource here in Rochester. They're called NAMI, NAMI, Rochester.
Yes.
They do a lot with adults that are LGBTQ plus, but also might struggle with their mental health. And again, I think they are more of an adult focused group, but even still, it's good to know.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for reminding us of that. There are neighbors right around the corner.
Oh, are they? I didn't even
in Village Gate.
That.
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
But I mean, I know there are some communities, and there's a lot more literature out there and materials and support, educational. That's helpful. I think the message we really want to send is that we are an accepting agency, that we are here to walk. We say we walk the journey with our foster parents, our adoptive parents, but we walk the journey with the kids too. Our staff and our foster parents are educated and understand that it's bigger than trauma sometimes. There's so many, again, using the word layers. So it's so important for us to not just do everything we can for kids, but to ensure that our kids are safe and healthy and that we get them all the right supports. And I'm so glad you shared so much today. You had some really great insights, Rachel, and we're so open about your story, and I just love it. So
yeah, well, and I didn't even mention to you too that, I mean, this could lead me to taking one of our children at some point too, right?
No, I mean, almost said that.
Well, I've considered it before, but I felt like for a while I wasn't in the right space. I cannot bring one home now or my wife will lose her mind. But she told me that when I first started here, she was like, well, now that your paperwork's complete, don't come home with the kid one day, please. Just let me know that. Okay.
Wait till
I think
we're
you have
ready,
to
right?
sign off on that, but it's okay. Yes. Yes. But
great.
even that is just, just learning more about foster care and adoption too, and all the resources that are here has been great for me personally as well too. It makes me feel like I can do better with this job as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Well, I think we've pretty much exhausted our conversation. Well, the first part of it, I should say. In our next episode, we plan to talk to some families that are currently same-sex couples raising foster kids or adoptive kids. So, but this has been a great introduction to the topic. And I love that you both shared stories and that you were just so open. We were able to really bring, hopefully, to the listeners the understanding of what our kids go through and what our kids need and why it's so important to accept and support.
And then also that we are an inclusive organization, right?
Absolutely.
We welcome everyone. and Families Thrive can be their safe space.
Yes, thank you for that. That's
Absolutely.
great.
Those who are listening and you're part of the LGBTQ and questioning community, and you're interested in learning more about the process and may feel like you can't go anywhere else, or you may think that you're not going to be accepted, I strongly recommend that you give us a call. You reach out. You can go into our website. You can email us. Our website is www.familiesthriveinc.org. Our phone number is 585-232-5110, and we welcome all, and we would love to support you on your journey to adoption or fostering.
That's right. Great. Thank you so much. We sure hope that we get those calls because we're here for our listeners.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to License to Love.
If you're curious, cautious, or already in the process, License to Love is your roadmap on this journey.
Every child deserves a safe, loving home, and we're here to help you gain your license to foster and adopt. Follow License to Love on the Jazzcast Pros Network, available wherever you get your podcasts.